All right, when you came in, you had a white card that you could ask questions on. We have more blank white cards if you have more questions. Chris and Julie and Blaine are picking them up. Rhonda's compiling them at the back of the room. So everyone's question has been compiled. You may not hear your exact question tonight, but we're grouping questions that are similar together. But we are keeping track of every question that you've submitted. All right, not surprisingly, the top questions so far are about money, taxes, and fees. What a surprise, huh? So first, what studies have been done to determine the impact on taxes?
All right, so, and I think you've heard us say this before, the impact on taxes is going to be zero because it's unlawful to change it. In other words, in the first year after you incorporate as a city, which always just for reminding people starts on July 1, your taxes cannot go up. So we don't actually need a study, but we do need a budget, and a budget is what determines how much money we need. Now, as we look at this, and we realize how much money we're sending for Washoe County, we believe that is more than ample for us to do the services the way we want to do them here in Incline Village, and so that there is a strong possibility, not a promise, but there's a strong possibility when we develop the budgets, and you will see that we'll present it to you as part of it.
Put a battery in that thing.
Part of the petition. That we won't, the Incline Village part may just go down because we won't need that money. So in Nevada, we do this thing is you assess your property, you pay your property taxes, and if your values go up, you pay more taxes. Well, we don't need to work that way. What we should do is determine how much money we need and adjust the rate of taxation to match what we need. And if we need more, we raise it, and if we don't need as much, we lower it, and we're anticipating that we'll probably be able to lower it. Yeah. Now, what would make it go up? Well, if you start thinking of things you'd like to have different here, so maybe you want a town center, or maybe you want whatever, crosswalks on every single street, or that costs money. But if we do that, it's because you raised your hand collectively and said, we want that, and we're willing to pay for it. Not because someone put it in there and decided to charge it for it. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just think that the point about the taxes going up automatically in dollars is a really weird thing. I don't know if you noticed, Washoe County's budget actually went up about 20% last year. Did you know that? Because their income from property taxes that were not adjusted went up. Of course, that makes no sense. The budget should reflect the cost of providing the services, not the opportunity just to get the extra revenue.
So we have did you get batteries in that other mic?
That's nothing. I'll just stay next to you.
All right.
Or I'll just
Next question, I'll combine a couple here. Will our property taxes go
Keep
up,
me that-
down, or
Rounds with
remain
these batteries.
unchanged?
This is
And when can we see a proposed budget? Property taxes up, down, or stay the same?
So I think I just answered that, actually. They stay the same, and then for the first year, and then they go up, down, and we're thinking most likely down.
Answer the second half.
All right, budget. So I come from a basically corporate background. I'm a huge disbeliever in displaying incomplete staff work. So when we have the staff work complete, we will show it to you, and that's going to be it's being developed now. We're actually going to be doing several budgets and revenue forecasts, and this will be sometime between now and December. So expect something more like December. And then you're going to look at it. Actually, the way we'll probably do it is many of you who have volunteered and who have actually credentials and expertise in this kind of thing, we're gonna show it to those volunteers first, so that we refine it to a point where we think it's ready for broad display, and then we're gonna show it to everybody. And you'll be able to critique it, comment, well, what about this? There's not enough of this, too little of that. And then we'll change it. And we'll keep on doing that until we feel like we have a sufficient work product. But you're not gonna see the first draft until we've completed the staff work. It's a lot of work, and unfortunately, some of it depends on some of these legal reviews that we're doing, because those shape or define what services we will take and not take, and how we will do that.
Anything to add, Kevin?
No, I think you nailed it.
Okay. How will
Put those
capital
batteries in.
improvements assumed by the city from the county be paid for?
I don't think we're gonna pay for them.
Yeah,
They're gonna be allocated.
can you restate that again? Was that, just make sure I understand the question.
If the question is, assets that the county currently owns and operates in Incline Village,
Right.
that we've actually already paid or bought and paid for, we expect them to assign them to us.
Yeah, there's a process of equitable apportionment of the assets that we would use, so potentially, police substation, potentially court building rent, things like that. And that's part of the process after the ball is rolling on the city is approved, and we're now working towards creating it. A lot of things actually fall in that window.
All right, we'll move on to choice of services. What if Washoe County says we have to provide all services?
I love the question.
Yeah, I think we're gonna-
It's like the
I
evil
think we're
Washoe
gonna- I
County
think we're gonna
version.
take that one.
So they're obligated to provide services to the public. So they don't actually have the option to not provide the services, but we do have the option to take them over. So that's pretty much the answer to that one.
Will we have our own planning department?
You bet. We're gonna have a planning department, and we're gonna have a building department, and I think we'll ultimately have some sort of a community planning commission. And so if you want to see Incline Village look a little prettier, or anyway more better and different, that would be something that we'll do here, and we won't be driving down to Reno to try to convince the Washoe County to do something more better and different with respect to land use and development here. So no, that's actually, frankly, that's I think one of the biggest advantages of incorporating as a city is we get control over what's here, how it's used, and what it does.
When we tried to become a county, Washoe County stopped the effort. What circumstances have changed so we can establish a city?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll take that one. So Todd mentioned earlier that there's been previous efforts, 5 by some count, to create something. So to create a county, you actually have to have the legislature create and approve the county. That's hard. In fact, there was even a situation where we apparently got a school district actually approved to the point where it hit the governor's desk, and he vetoed it. So depending on the kindness of strangers is not a great strategy in this scenario.
One thing I might add though is, there's 17 counties in Nevada, and if Incline Village was a county, there would be 7 counties smaller than Incline Village.
Yep. Yeah, and of course, even if we did want to create a county, the first step would be to get something up and running as a city before you'd even consider having the capability to expand.
When will a comprehensive feasibility study be done?
Let me take that? I can take that.
Yeah, why don't you take
Yeah.
that? Sure.
So actually, before we even got this rolling, we did a feasibility study on what are the problems that are out there, what are the services that are being underperformed. As Todd mentioned, he's been doing it for years. That was his. So we did. Yeah, a bunch of volunteers actually did it. Yeah, including me. Yep.
So let me mention, we actually have the feasibility study and the financials and the detailed budgets and staffing that was done previously for the entire county, which was done by a professional organization, which basically shows, you know, if it was a choice, we could actually put together a county and it'd be financially viable and feasible. That's not what we're doing, but I just mentioned that as if you have the financial wherewithal to substantiate a county, you certainly have the ability to do a city.
Yeah, and
That's already in the bag.
Yeah, and just to contrast that with other cities, so I've worked on new city projects around the world actually, and you know, usually you're talking about a clean sheet, ground up, no people live there, and that's a lot more challenging from a feasibility standpoint because you actually don't have people there paying taxes yet. So you have to bridge a gap from we're going to put in infrastructure to actually having the money to pay for it. This is about the easiest possible financial scenario you could imagine.
And just for comparison, the city of Fernley has an annual operating budget of $11 million, but they have 23,000 people. So they're much larger than us, and we're sending Washoe County 23 million. So you do the math.
And that's just property tax. It's only about half the budget
And that's
overall.
just property
Yeah.
tax, and that's not all of the revenues that will be coming in. So as an example, you know, this won't be our scenario, but like the city of Sparks, 40% of their revenue is C-tax.
Consolidated tax, sales tax primarily, but yeah, things like that.
So and those are things, and C-tax will be something that will be coming to Incline Village, which we don't currently get.
Yeah. And just as a rule of thumb for budgets per cities, $1,000 to $2,000 a person is a really quick and dirty way to think about a typical budget.
Surprise, we have some questions about the beaches.
Wait a minute, I wasn't going to show this because I wanted to end on the comedy, but we have some. Oh, I guess not. Oh well. I was going to say there's 3 things you don't need to ask about: the beach deed, the transferring the costs, and we're not being created to raise taxes. But why not? We're here.
Is there any possibility the state could force us to open our beaches to the public if we become a city?
I don't think so. And we're taking every measure. Again, I'll repeat. 7 lawyers, 3 law firms looking at this and only this issue and looking at any threats to our beaches. Because the one thing we are not going to go down in history causing is a change in the access and the exclusive privileges for us to use our beaches. We're not, and that's a showstopper. If it comes true that what we're proposing here and asking you to consider threatens the beach, we're going to stop. We're going to say, bad idea, don't do it. Okay, so that's another part. So I hope I don't have to say that, but when I tell you how much, how many people we have looking at this and how hard we have to look at this, know that we're doing our very, very best to make sure that there's no change in the beaches and that those rights that we have today are maintained, protected, and perhaps even improved.
Yep.
I'll probably want to write a little more about that question, but it's a little bit complicated because our neighbors over in California have a different scenario, and we unfortunately have Nevada Division of State Lands that's lusting after to follow the model in California, which we absolutely have to prevent here in Nevada. So could the state do something? They could try, but we have to make sure that they either don't try or if they do attempt it, that would be unsuccessful. And that incidentally is part of our review, and it's not just the state. The question could be expanded to, could Washoe County do something? And notice when we drew the borders, there's no portion of Washoe County that's basically in Lake Tahoe. excuse me, any part of Washoe County that's in Lake Tahoe is inside the borders of the city of Incline Village.
Except for Santa Harbor.
No, Santa
Santa
Harbor
Harbor's
will
in.
be inside.
Yep.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
There's already inside of IVGID, you're maybe next door to your house, federally owned land, Nevada state owned land, Washoe County owned land. The ownership of the land is not relevant to the boundaries of the city.
Yeah, the jurisdiction really applies to the services. So for example, where crime's committed, where they get prosecuted, who's responsible for what, who does what roads. There's state roads here, county roads, and so on. Yep. Good question.
If Crystal Bay is included, will those residents get a free pass to the beaches?
All right, so I said we're gonna protect the beach deed, and at this time, my answer is, or has to be, no. Could that change someday? Maybe, but the starting point for protecting the beach deed is interpreting it literally. This is actually, as you know, something this is under the auspices of IVGID. And they make the choices there, and in fact, one of the reasons that we are currently proposing that the beaches stay with IVGID and not be in the city is for that reason, okay? And this is not the first time this kind of thing has happened. Does anyone know that the Strip in Las Vegas is not part of the city of Las Vegas?
As a city, will we truly be able to say no to TRPA, TTD, etc.? For example, the mobility hub.
I love that question.
That's good.
Okay, so let's tell you about good news and bad news. So the bad news is TRPA is with us forever. It's not going away, and no city government or county government, has the wherewithal to escape its grasp.
Or state government.
Or state
It's a
government.
federal interstate compact.
Yeah. So, however, and I do believe, and we will be seeking this, that our representative on the TRPA board in Washoe County will be from Incline Village, rather than, and I hope the same is true for TD. I mean, what sense does it make for a Washoe County commissioner to sit on the TRPA governing board when there's no portion that isn't inside the city at Lake Tahoe? So we're looking for that, and we are taking measures as we speak to begin the influence, socializing that idea with TRPA and beyond. So no, we won't. There will always be TRPA, but we will. I think we'll have a good chance, and we'll be on a solid platform to cause them to improve their service to us. There used to be a person at TRPA dedicated just to looking at plans here, who is long gone. So we need to up their game. Right now, if you went in and tried to get something approved, and I'm sure there's someone here who's trying to do this, if you wanted to get like a new buoy in the lake or something like that, you're looking at 2 years. They have 180 days to look at, review, and respond to your application. They haven't made it. They haven't made that deadline in a long, long time. They're failing. They're kind of getting off their mission, and there needs to be change at TRPA. And I'm hoping that we can help nurture them back to the place they need to be on their game.
How would the school district be impacted?
So when we looked at the pros and cons of county versus city versus town, that kind of thing, one of the things we had to give up on was anything to do with the school district. We recognize that the Washoe County and the Washoe County School District are completely different organizations. In fact, they hate each other. They're suing each other as we speak. all right? Schools are a county function. And we're not becoming a county, so the city of Incline Village will not be taking the schools. Now, having said that, there has been a little bit of innovation here lately. I noticed the city of Las Vegas started its own school district. Somehow.
A charter district.
Charter.
Yeah,
it's a
using charter
district.
district rules, you can do
During
that.
the pandemic. And there's some of the people down there, including a specific city council person, is planning on introducing legislation into the legislature in this upcoming session that might change the opportunities for a city to address schooling. But at this 10 seconds, the answer is the schools are what they are. The city won't be really changing them at all. And if you are looking for improvement in the schools, we're going to have to do some more work. I do think as a city, that'll be a better place to address school problems than as an unincorporated area out in the corner of Washoe County. But basically, we're not really touching the schools.
Yeah, I think just as Todd mentioned, like the city is generally a platform for problem solving locally, being able to respond, detect, respond, and fix things. It certainly gives us more influence, and there is the potential with the platform to do something to improve the schools if that's something that's really important to the community.
Where does IVGID fit into the city of Incline?
All right. The answer to that question is going to depend on a lot of this homework and reviews that we're doing. Right now, IVGID stays in the picture. We need them at least to cover the beaches. There will be some stuff that will no longer be under the IVGID umbrella, and I'll give you just one example. In order to qualify for the consolidated tax that I mentioned earlier, the city has to do something in recreation. So we're going to want a park, Preston Field or something like that. If you, and this is where we really would appreciate your feedback. So IVGID, one of the big things it does, we had a tremendous number of employees and money goes into this is recreation. We got the golf course, we've got the ski resort, of course, we got the beaches and on and on and on and on. If you like the way they're doing that and you want to maintain that, you keep that with it could become parks and recreations. But we're going to have to, again, under the requirements of the city, we're going to have to do our streets ourselves. Washoe County will no longer maintain our streets. It will become the responsibility of the city of Incline Village. When we do that, it probably makes sense to embrace what is otherwise known as the Public Works section of IVGID. But again, that's part of the homework we're doing right now. So what you should think, the shortest answer to that is IVGID continues. Its role is different and somewhat smaller. The city will take some things. And even if your intent, and we could do this instantly just by changing the boundaries, even if your intent was to get rid of IVGID or to absorb it in the city, you wouldn't be doing that on the first day, right? You would think about coming in and doing a change management in a company. You would start a process and a transition, and you would take a decision. Well, we think we need to move this from IVGID into the city, or not. But if you wanted to take the whole thing, you wouldn't do it in one day. It would be a long process. It would be a transition, and it would be orderly to produce a good result. So the short answer is, if it lives on, it needs to live on the way we see it, particularly because of the beaches. But the city ends up taking some of the things that it does in a very rational and logical way.
Yeah, just to put some scale on that, so the requirement is you have to have a few full-time employees in recreation. So that could be maintenance of a park. And that's kind of the minimum scale. It could be a new park, for example, though. So it could certainly be left fully alone. And then it's also true, by the way, of the fire district. Not touching the fire district, it will continue as is, as in that chart you saw earlier.
All right. What problems are we hoping to solve, and how do we know as cities the answer to our problems?
All right, do
I think we covered that
should I put mine?
for about 60 minutes.
All right, so I think I'm gonna shortcut that one because, I put up already a slide that listed a whole bunch of problems. I've got 14 pages, single space of problems here. The general categories of problems, and there's also opportunities, are things like, is development, redevelopment, ordinances that might make it a little easier to live here with short-term rentals all around, parking, snow plowing. I don't know if you noticed that we don't even have painted sidewalks here in Incline Village. They were painted years ago and it's all worn out. It's a laundry list of stuff like that. But I think the single biggest thing is that when we want to change something or improve something, that we want to do it, if you will, our way, our preferences, our priorities, and let's not have a repeat of a bus hub in the middle of the city. It could be something much better and more useful.
Yep. Yeah, just to add a little bit to that, I'd kind of flipped the question to make it maybe a little more interesting, which is, there's things we're not going to be able to change. We talked about TRPA. It's going to be there. TTD is another different special district. We're not going to change state law. I'm actually working with a city in North Carolina right now that wants to take over a state-run highway that goes through the middle of the town. Sound familiar? Yeah, so it's a state-run highway. They control it, NDOT's in charge of it. And so they decide what happens where and when. And so those are things that we can influence, and we can actually partner with some of these agencies directly to make the changes we want to see. But they're going to be there, and you have to have realistic expectations as well.
Quick correction, in the address here, it's village.league
Don't.
at yahoo.com. We had some people who couldn't get that address.
We have a new email too. It's coming online. cityofinclinevillage@gmail.com. So that one might be easy to remember. Yay.
2 quick money questions. Does the city have the same ability to charge fees and taxes as a GID? And how will revenue from sales tax be shared?
Okay, so I'll take the sales tax one first, since that did come up earlier. The consolidated tax, which includes primarily sales tax and other stuff, is a giant messy thing that gets all brought up to the state level and then assigned with these formulas to the counties, which then further push them on to incorporated governments within their district. So Washoe County gets a share of the statewide collection on this, and then passes even some direct to IVCBA, for example. And I think it was back in 1999, around then, they changed the rules and set up these minimum requirements you had. And when Todd was referring to the Fernley problem, they actually set up their city with the belief or intent to get consolidated taxes, but they didn't check the 3 boxes. So they didn't get it. They didn't actually take over police, which you have to take over. They didn't take over enough of it. And so that's something that we're very careful about, and we're hoping to get our full share of consolidated tax by doing those things, including having the 3 park and rec people, or whatever it is, right? Because that's going to be worth it. On the first question was about taxes and fees and stuff, right?
Ability to tax.
Yeah, ability to tax. Yeah, so the city has a more general ability to tax, but just as other governments are supposed to do, the taxes are supposed to come from everyone and go into the general fund and be used to benefit everyone. There's other subdivisions where you have fees which might go to support a particular activity. There's a thing called an enterprise fund where it's really like a business. It's supposed to be self-supporting, and in many states by law it has to be. You're not allowed to subsidize that. So the constraints that would go on the city would be to reflect basically the best model of making sure that taxes are paying for things that benefit everyone, and that fees are going to benefit those particular activities and the cost associated, the full cost associated with those activities, so that you don't have taxpayers subsidizing fees. And in general, yeah, there's more flexibility, and certainly there's other options to create dependent districts and so on. And that's really not me or Todd. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, does that cover the question?
I think so.
Okay.
Not on that question.
Okay. What happens to the fire district?
The fire district stays the same. We are drawing the boundaries of the city different than the fire district, which means nothing changes. It will continue to collect monies via property tax. You see that on the property tax bill, they'll execute the exact same mission as they do now. And it's one of those things where our position is, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. And, you know, that could change in the future, but that's where we think we're going with the fire district.
It's enough work to create a new city.
Yeah, this isn't
Before-
really all that easy,
Yeah.
and so if it's doing okay, we just leave it alone.
Yeah.
What does Crystal Bay get out of this?
Okay, so I think we're proposing a situation, and I hope we can sign up for this, which is, you know, all boats rise together, and the alternative to exclude Crystal Bay from the city, to me, would be some form of, would be a very bad, let's just say
Abuse.
abuse, a very bad idea to have little Crystal Bay out in the corner of Washoe County all by itself. And if you think that, if you really want to be ignored, that's what you do. So what Crystal Bay gets to do is become, you know, an integrated part of a well-run government in a prosperous community, and basically benefit from having the best government in the United States of America. That's not something I want to pass up. So, you know, what do they?
Go ahead, clap. I mean, unless you don't like it.
They say there's everything for them to lose if they don't come aboard, and we don't have to include them. There's only, what, 300 here? There's 9,000 in Incline Village, about 300 in Crystal Bay. The kids all go to the same schools. There's just not a good reason to push them out. They should be included. I think they'll prosper by being included. And there's a lot of great people in Crystal Bay too, so we want them in our community to be part of this, is the short answer.
Did you have anything to add, Kevin?
No, amen.
Well, we are approaching 7:30, which I believe is our
Yep.
time. So again, we have entered all of your questions that you turned in. Todd and Kevin and other volunteers will be going through them. Please check the website for the frequently asked questions, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks for coming.
Great questions.
Know that you all are part of this journey. This is not something where it's going to be done to you. It's a group effort. We appreciate anybody who wants to raise their hand and volunteer to help, because there's plenty of work.